Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, May 15th, 2023. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Councillor Johnston, please come forward. We won't even make you spin the wheel. All right, a warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in attendance, and we have a lovely attendance tonight in the council chamber in Listowel, or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Pardon me. Such direction will only be given in instances when the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I have regrets tonight from Councillor Blazek. Once again, we have the opportunity to celebrate and recognize success in our community, and so it is a pleasure for me to step out from behind this desk and to call Deputy Mayor Kellum to be my companion in this journey, to come along and support our recognition activity. Let me just set the AV settings here. And off we go. Well, this is becoming a wonderful custom. We've had a couple weeks now where we've had the opportunity to recognize teams and individuals who've made outstanding contributions in North Perth, who have won championships, etc. And tonight is no exception. Tonight we have with us the Listowel Legionnaires 13U baseball team, and there's a story. Tonight we have a special recognition on the agenda for this team. The team competed in the OBA provincial tournament in, I guess, 2022, last year, and secured an incredible win. I think they sort of showed great spirit in doing so. The 2022 13U only went 7-8-1 throughout the season and placed fourth and second in mid-season tournaments. But as often happens, things came together in the year-end OBA tournament. We'll start it off the weekend with a tight 3-1 win over a great team from Wyoming, then beat Mitchell 10-1, then lost in an offensive battle against Exeter. Listowel then had to face Mitchell again to determine who would move on to Sunday's semifinals, and Listowel came out on top with an incredible 12-2 win. I think I should bet on competitions against Mitchell. Maybe that's the message. On Sunday, the Legionnaires had a solid win over Strathroy to set up a finals match against Wyoming. Listowel's deep pitching and strong bats carried the team to an impressive, get this, 21-4 win to capture the championship. That's a football score, not a baseball score. And in all, Listowel scored 63 runs, allowed only 20 over 6 games in the OBA tournament. Incredible work and workmanship between the whole of the team, certainly a season for all of us to remember. So congratulations to the Listowel Legionnaires 13U team. So what we do is we call forward people to receive little tokens on behalf of the municipality for outstanding accomplishments. And tonight we'll begin with the coaching staff. We ask the coaches to stand in the middle, sort of in front of where the mayor is, and then we ask our team members to sort of file in around us. And by the end of this, we'll take some pictures. So anyone who wants to come forward and take pictures is welcome to do so. And council will be involved at the appropriate point. So let's call forward the coaches here. First is Chad Kay. Well done. Congratulations. And second is Chris Rabin. And that's a pretty lean coaching staff from what I can tell. All right. Next, let's call forward the team members. Jackson McGuire. Come over this way. Congratulations. Ethan Culling. Congratulations. Noah Kay. Congratulations. Cody Frook. Congratulations. Caleb Martin. Congratulations. Cash Gilbert. Congratulations. Wyatt Rabin. Congratulations. Gavin Nickel. Congratulations. Ty Newland. Not here tonight. Here. Not here. Balin Vidic. Am I close? Not close. All right, tell me how it's really said. Vidic. All right. Valen Vidic. Let's get it right. And Preston Wall. And you got to watch out for the deputy mayor because he tells jokes to these kids as they're coming up here. All right. These are the provincial champion Listowel Legionnaires 13U baseball team from 2022. All right, you have to put up with a few more handshakes because we're going to invite all of council to come around and shake your hands, and then we're going to take the pictures. All right, so let's have this movement. Oh, is she back there? Oh, there she is. All right, so we have the rest of council behind at the back. This is a more mature group than before. They're a little taller than we're used to, I think. So we're going to sneak in behind with the coaches and get our pictures in this and close up, guys. That's great. Colleagues, feels like we're on a roll. Like that feeling a lot. All right, let's move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Colleagues, any of you wishing to make a declaration this evening? Looking good. Okay, so let's move forward. Basic ground rules for our meeting. All participants are invited to speak when called upon by yours truly serving as chair. Those participating remotely who wish to speak may draw the attention of the clerk through our conferencing technology's text chat function. Remote participants are asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize the right to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or having some difficulty, I will advise and attempt to send help. Let us now focus on the people's business. I invite those in the chamber to silence and put away their phones, and I invite decorum. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Andreessen and Councillor Anstett will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And we're waiting for the hamsters. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move next to item 3 on our agenda. The so-called consent agenda. Consent agenda items are placed because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant Council's recognition and or action. Grouping them does expedite our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 29 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. It would appear that councils throughout Ontario are quite busy right now. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections that you've noted for the minutes? And first, let's start with Councillor Rothwell. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, Council and guests. I'd like to discuss with Council item 3.10, the County of Prince Edward's resolution regarding proposed new provincial policy statement changes. As well, if I may provide an update through to Council regarding the North Perth resolution, which has got 7 endorsements on the consent agenda regarding school bus stop arm cameras, please.
Anyone else? Let's try that again with the microphone on. Works much better that way. Wishing to draw something out of the consent agenda for further discussion or action? Okay, let's proceed, I think, in this order. Councillor Rothwell, let's have the update on your resolution that this council has endorsed pertaining to school bus arm cameras. That would be helpful, I think, and then we can have the second one, which sounds like a slightly meatier topic.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd and Council. I just want to bring to our attention that the resolution which North Perth Council adopted regarding school bus stop arm cameras, which, as you'll see, has received 7 motions of support, or resolution of support throughout the province on this agenda and many more, as we know. I did speak with our new representative for our district, Councillor Steve McCabe. He is our district representative on the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Board of Directors, and he is bringing this matter directly before the Roma directors at their meeting in June. So I thought it was important that Council know that, and Councillor Anstett did mention that Councillor Steve McCabe was on the ranch and gave an update regarding some changes and so on. So clearly he's making the rounds and making himself known as a newly elected representative. So I think it's important that Council know that we do have a direct voice at that table at Roma, and they are bringing forward our resolution that Council adopted some months ago.
I think all of Council is grateful to hear that news. That is good news indeed. All right, let's turn to item 3.10 from Prince Edward County.
If I may, I did forget, Mr. Mayor, that our local MPP, Matthew Ray, is having ongoing discussions with the Minister of Transportation on this matter as well, and he's promised to provide an update, and I will let Council know when I hear that information through as well. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, now you have the floor for 3.10.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. Item 3.10 is found on page 19 of our agenda package. So this is a resolution which is coming from Prince Edward County, and specifically regarding proposed changes of the provincial policy statement, and there's many. And I just want to focus in on one that Councillor Duncan had provided members of Council of an article in the London Free Press regarding Oxford County and the concerns expressed in that report regarding upwards or up to 10% of the amount of agricultural land could be negatively impacted by this change and this change alone. Here within Perth County, as we've said before, agriculture is critical. It's a significant generator of income in our economy, and the proposed change could, of creating upwards of 3 lots, new lots on each farm, could have a devastating impact on our local farmers, and could potentially increase the price of farmland, which is already high, with the potential that there could be 3 new lots created that, as of right, by the sounds of the policy. I do mention, or do note that the county's Manager of Planning, Sally McMillan, has a report on the upcoming County Council agenda, which outlines a number of these issues, and I look forward to perhaps our county councillors hearing of that report, and perhaps this council hearing the report as well. But in the meantime, my hope would be that North Perth Council would stand with and give our support to the resolution forwarded by Prince Edward County regarding concerns expressed specifically regarding its impacts on agriculture and agricultural lands. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I assume that essentially you're moving that we support the resolution that has been circulated by the County of Prince Edward, and that we also CC this to the relevant authorities. I would assume our local MP, we want this to go to Minister Clark and Premier Ford as the original resolution, to Minister Thompson from Agriculture, I'm seeing, and we would appreciate AMO and Roma, I assume, having access to this as well. And the Western Ontario Wardens probably as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be willing to move that.
All right.
Kasenberg.
Clerk's table, you kind of can extract the list, I think, from the resolution. So moved by Councillor Rothwell. Can I call for a seconder? Councillor Johnston is willing. All right. Any discussion or debate on this one? I think it's quite disconcerting. I'll offer my own comments that the most recent legislation has really sort of created a Wild West opportunity around planning that is unfortunate given the strength and quality of planning efforts that we have in this county and around us. And so it certainly is a startling time and a startling move from the province with regards to this. Anyone else want to weigh in? Councillor Johnston, you want to say a few words, please?
I'll keep it fairly brief. If you remember during the election, we talked about that number of 319 acres lost per day. That number of the next election, with the way the government's going, might be laughable. It could be 3 or 4 times that number, the way it's going. So, and that's not the right way to go to feed a growing world, a growing province. We need those acres.
Indeed. Okay. Anyone else wishing to make comment on this matter? All right. Seeing none, then let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Anyone else wanting to look at the consent agenda before we consider it in toto? Okay, I have a resolution then for consideration as follows: that consent items 3.1 to 3.29 be received for information, and the minutes of the May 8th, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Duncan, thank you. And our seconder will be Councillor Richardson. Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on the consent agenda resolution? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. At this time, then, it's proposed that we move to agenda item number 4, The clerk is bringing the podium in for the balance of this public meeting that is proposed. Per our agenda, we have planned to hold 3 public meetings to address the remediation of drains, providing opportunities to those who may be assessed to learn about the engineer's recommendations and ask questions. To that end, we must adjourn from our regular council meeting for the purposes of public meeting, and I have a resolution that enables us to do that. It reads as follows: the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:25 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting under the Drainage Act concerning the following: public meeting to consider the Hilpert Municipal Drain, public meeting to consider the Mar Hill Municipal Drain, and public meeting to consider the McIntosh Municipal Drain. Can I call for a mover? Deputy Mayor Callum, thank you. Councillor Nordham will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. At this point, then, our regular council meeting is in recess for the purpose of this meeting. Let's begin. We have 3 drains to look at. We have the engineer with us. Let me introduce the first one. This is a public meeting to consider a drainage report prepared for the Hilpert Municipal Drain. For any who are assessed on this drain who are with us in the council chambers tonight, welcome to you. Welcome next to Mr. Widener. Brandon Widener is with Spreet Associates. He's a consulting engineer who works on North Perth files. Nice to have him in our physical presence. Often we see him on the screen, so we get a little closer to him tonight. And I invite you to present your report, Mr. Widener.
And in order to make it simple, they're all intertwined, interconnected. They all border each other. The first one tonight is the Hilpert Drain, and this was the one we were appointed on first. It is a little bit older. This drain is a little more complicated than the others. We were appointed in the middle of 2022. So if you could bring up the plan per se, Lindsay. So the Hilpert Drain is an existing municipal drain. It was done in 1975. It was also done prior to that in 1968. It's a open and closed system. There's an open portion that connects to the river on the far left, as you see on the plan, then proceeds across the Andrews farm, then goes down the property line between Andrews and what now is Etterlands. Then it crosses that farm as well and ends up the side road. The rest of the drain is closed, and there was a number of branches constructed in 1975 and 1968. So the original request here was to enclose the portion of ditch on the Etterland farm. So that's downstream of the side road. That was what initiated this project. They wanted to enclose the entire ditch on their property. When we go through this process, we do have to get permitting from, again, Maitland Valley in this case, and the Department of Fisheries. The Department of Fisheries had a number of concerns with, let's say, the level of enclosure we were proposing, in which case this job is, it's went down a different route than we usually have went down, and there's a Fisheries Act authorization completed for this project. To give you some idea what that means the township has put up a letter of credit for offsetting measures that will be completed in part of the drainage works with the Department of Fisheries. The letter of credit is to ensure that some of the offsetting is completed. So what we have proposed tonight is a brand new drain from top to bottom. You're seeing some open ditch improvements at the bottom end. There's some deepening to allow for the enclosure across Etterlands. The enclosure is not going to be their entire property, but it's the width of their property. There are some offsetting features being completed along the drain. That includes some tree planting, which is done in conjunction of Maitland Valley. And there'll be a number of riffle rock structures created, which will help offset some of the loss of habitat by backfilling the channel. As well as there's new tile going in. So when we had the original meeting, the upstream owners also decided improvements were required from the 1975 drain. So we are going to install a new drain on the upstream side of the road up to, I believe it's Mr. Bushell's property, as well as there's a new branch being constructed to the south into F&K Dairy, if I remember correctly. So this encompasses all the work, but the main driver of this again was Ederlands with the enclosure. So this isn't the biggest drain of the night, but it's the second largest one. The total cost is approximately $242,000 and $500, I should say. So if you go through this, you'll see there's a number of different things you'll see on this. It just drain was upsized to a larger design. That's assessed directly to the landowners, as well as the enclosure is assessed directly to the benefiting landowner. So all those are separated out, to give council an idea. The enclosure is costing out of pocket $60,000 more directly to them. There's no grant for that work. The municipality is going to see a new road crossing completed, and the pipes underneath that road will be both changed, as well as there will be a catch basin placed on the upstream end of the one branch to help with road ditching in the future. So this is the first one of 3 tonight. This is one of the more complicated projects we've had in a while in this municipality. A fisheries act authorization is quite entailed. Your conservation authority has been wonderful to work with, and they've helped through the process, but this is a little above and beyond what we usually have to do for an enclosure project, as you'll see later in the Macintosh drain. So I guess if anyone has any questions, I know because all the drains are right beside each other, I know we have lots of landowners here today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Widener. I'm going to call at this time to the audience. If anyone is an assessed landowner and would like to ask questions or offer comments on this matter, they may step forward. If you do so, we'd like to know your name and how you're impacted by this drain. But does anyone wish to avail themselves of the opportunity to ask questions or make comments? Okay, I'm not seeing the landowners do so. Let's turn to council. Any questions or comments on this matter? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. So Brandon, you already have the fisheries approval or whatever you needed from them?
We have a Fisheries Act authorization, so we have, I've been off the last couple of days, but the information was sent. So essentially the municipality puts up a letter of credit. In this case, off the top of my head, I believe it's $9,500. That is a letter of credit. A letter of credit was sent to Winnipeg, which is the Department of Fisheries, let's say, head office. They will hold that for a process of 2 years. So that is to ensure that the offsetting features that we have included in this project are constructed. Now, this is a municipal drain, so of course it's going to be constructed because it's part of the report. That being said, the offsetting that has to be constructed is tree planting on the ditch that runs parallel to the Andrews and Ederland property. Maitland Valley provided the tree planting plan, and they're going to work with Scott on doing that. There's some rock riffle structures being constructed in that portion of ditch. I know this municipalities went through this process before with a different engineer. In this case, Mr. Richardson's going to be looking after the monitoring. So essentially the monitoring is they want photos each year for 2 years to ensure that everything's there is functioning, it's alive. The letter of credit is, I guess, their way of saying if it's not functioning, they're going to restore it. But the municipality would do that, like Scott would do that. It's like a fail-safe. In the number of drains that we've done in the last couple of years, they've never made me go down this process.
Okay. But I'm glad to hear that Scott's going to be administering it, not DFO coming out to monitor as things are going to be
well,
done?
they can. Essentially, Scott will be sending them photos every
Yep.
year.
That's perfect.
Scott works for the municipality. I don't have to be involved. Essentially, we can see the project through construction, and then we'll leave it in his hands. And
Good. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions on council about this one? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so at this point, we haven't heard any significant concerns. And that means that this public meeting pertaining to the Hilpert drain can be adjourned. So I'll do that. Now, formalities. Next, we go to the Mar Hill Municipal Drain. I gather this is a connected file, Mr. Widener. This is the public meeting for consideration of the report of said drain, and I welcome all who are with us, including assessed landowners, if you're here about this drain. Again, Mr. Widener from Spreet Associates is presenting this report, and I invite him to take over at this point.
so, for reference, it's hard to tell by the plan. The Hilpert drain is located directly north of this. The McIntosh drain is directly south, slightly to the west. So the Hilpert drain is a much smaller project. It only drains 5.6 hectares. Again, it's a replacement of an existing drain. It was from 1968. It's essentially a drain that runs across Mr. Good's property up and across the road. The old drain proceeded in that agricultural land, but we are abandoning it under this because that's not the norm today. So what you're seeing is a new drain here proposed from the open ditch up and across the road. There'll be catch basins installed at the road. This project, a little bit different than what we usually have. This is going to be plowed in. So this is flexible dual wall pipe. It's a better product than standard agricultural tile, but this can be installed by a number of different contractors with a drainage plow. It goes much quicker. There's less disturbance. Total project cost is $41,500. Again, there's only 3 landowners. It's pretty straightforward. Again, you're going to see a new road crossing. It's open cut. This is a gravel road, new basins at the road. Everything essentially cleaned up. This was initiated by the landowner on the west side of the road. He is involved with all 3. He's looking for outlets to tile this farm. But happy to answer any questions. This is the cleaner and sweeter one of the 3.
Clean and sweet. I'm not sure I've heard those terms applied to drains before, but I will take note of that. Thank you. All right. Opportunity for the landowners who would be assessed on this drain to ask any questions or offer any comments to council. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity, feel welcome to step forward to the podium. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone rising to their feet, so let's turn to council. Council, any questions or comments about this one? Okay, and I'm not seeing any indication from council, no questions or comments. Given that we've not surfaced any significant concerns, I think at this point we can adjourn this meeting, and I'll do so. Let's turn next to the last drain, probably not as sweet and not as clean if I'm following the bouncing ball. But this is the public meeting for the McIntosh Municipal Drain. Same purpose. It is to consider the report of the engineer on the remediation for this drain. And I welcome again the assessed landowners who may be with us. Mr. Widener gets a three-peat here. This is your 3rd turn at talking about drains tonight. And we welcome you to that intent. Please go ahead.
So this is the 3rd of 3. This is the McIntosh. It's the one furthest south. So this one is a little more entailed. It drains approximately 150 hectares. So we had a number of requests on this. There's a lot of components on this, so hopefully I can remember all of them. So the first thing you see is we have the open ditch shown all the way down to the drain it dumps into. I can't see off the top of my head. The reason we included all this is essentially it cleans up the municipality's paperwork, and when Scott does maintenance, he's using the most current report, not relying on an old one. So there's a portion of drain here shown, no work is being done. So that's essentially everything downstream of, I believe it's Wickamit Farms. So when you get into the rest of the drain, we had a number of requests here. We had an enclosure, that's at the it's about in the middle of the plans through the Wickamit property downstream of the McIntosh property. So to give you some history here, the McIntosh drain was last done in 1980. It was done by John Quincy, and they enclosed essentially the ditch in the McIntosh property. That was all the work they did at that time. The rest of the drain is circa 1955. So that's everything from the McIntosh upstream to the road, which on your plan for some reason is not there. But I'm thinking that's a mistake with the PDF. So we had a request for an enclosure. We had a request for replacement of the rest of the existing drain up to the road. With the enclosure, I needed to deepen the ditch. Deepening the ditch required a couple of culverts to be lowered and or replaced. There's a property on here owned, I believe his name is Mr. Hogwood, if I remember correctly. He had a low-level crossing. It also needed to be, either reinstalled or replaced. So this is a bit unique here. So we replaced the culvert under Wickamit Farms. I believe their West Farm. That culvert's getting changed. With Mr. Hogwood, the original proposal is to replace the culvert. As you guys all know, there's no grants on enclosures. He then suggested, can I take that money and put it towards an enclosure on the east end of my property? Which, sure, you can do that. But the problem with enclosures is you don't get grant. Crossings, you do get grant. So with this project, we reached out directly to OMAFRA and asked that they would apply an exception. After a number of emails, they are going to provide an exception, and that is his crossing. So that's what we've done. We've essentially pushed his crossing to the west end of the property, and it's shown as an enclosure, and it's with concrete tile. The one thing OMAFRA said is your length has to be realistic. So that's why it's, I believe, 26 meters, if I remember off the top of my head. So that was done. We then have a twin system, we then have an enclosure through the Wickamit property. That's an existing ditch we're enclosing. You get up into the McIntosh property. We are saving the tile from 1980. We're going to run a new one beside it. Then we will have a regular drain up to the road. This drain was upsized to a 50 millimeter design above the 1.5 inches, so that's a 2-inch design drain. That road is paved, so it will be bored, and there is a number of fiber optic cables on that road as well. And that's where the drain will end. So it's a little more entailed than the others, but it's all here today, and it cleans up the old reports. This project, again, so when we go to fisheries permits, this is a Class C drain. Typically, they're not, let's say, in favor of enclosures on Class C drains, i.e. the Hilpert. This one, there was no permitting requirements at all. They gave us a permit within days, with no restrictions, no offsetting required. So now you know why my job's sometimes difficult, because you don't know which ones are flagged. This one has no real restrictions, no offsettings required. Again, so we have a proposal here for approximately 1,200 meters of tile to be installed, and the project cost is $268,000. Now, when you go into the assessment schedule, you'll see there's a number of, let's say, special charges. Again, there's no grant on enclosures, so in this case, the enclosure much shorter than the Hilpert drain. It was about $43,000. And again, there's a 50 mil design charge, which is upsizing the tile above OMAFRA standard. And that is assessed to the people that, I guess, asked for it, let's say, which would be McIntosh, Wickamit, and FNK. So The whole neighborhood got a lot of learning on drains. There's 3 right beside each other. Scott's been, let's say, very good at making sure these stay together. They will be tendered together, and together we hopefully get the best price. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions. This project's been, let's say, pushed through a little bit to ensure that it stays with the Hillpert and the Marhill. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Widener. So again, we turn to any assessed landowners. If you have questions or comments you'd like to make about the proposition relating to the McIntosh Municipal Drain, you're welcome to approach the podium and do so. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Let's turn to council next then. Council, colleagues, do you have any questions about this or first comments on this matter? Councillor Rothwell, let me find your microphone. There we go.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks very much for the reports. Just through your last point, I think it is very wise that all 3 of these drains have been considered at the same time. And hopefully, as you say, that there will be relief in that entire those 3 drainage areas, and hopefully there will be some economy of scale. Perhaps the prices will reflect that it's a relatively large project instead of 3 small projects. It could be considered as one larger project that may interest contractors that could keep their equipment in one area. So I would hope that if it's agreed upon, that we could see the project move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments or questions at this point? All right, I'm not seeing any. That means I can report that no significant concerns have been raised in this public meeting, and that this public meeting pertaining to the McIntosh drain can be adjourned. All right, Council, we have a resolution to bring us back into regular council session as follows. The public meeting under the Drainage Act is adjourned at 7:47 p.m. and that Council reconvenes into regular open council. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Special thanks to Mr. Widener for visiting with us. Mr. Richardson, as always, thank you for your attention to detail and organizing things for us. And to those who've attended for the purposes of hearing the report, thank you for coming. Glad to have you participate. All right. Tonight's council, then, we have no delegations have petitioned to present to us. We should deal with the drainage matters now. Yes, I'm getting there. All right. The clerk's waving at me. Okay, so we have some items with regards to these 3 drains, of course, that are natural process. They are as follows. First, let's deal with the Hillpert drain. The resolutions are that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the Hillpert Municipal Drain Report dated April 11th, 2023, prepared by Street Associates Engineers and Architects. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson. Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Next will be the Court of Revision resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the Court of Revision for the Hillpert Municipal Drain on June 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Can I call for over this? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder? Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And now the third one on this matter, that bylaw number 53-2022, being a bylaw to provide drainage works, the Hillport Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read for second and third time, and be provisionally, first, second time. Yes. And provisionally adopted, that's right. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. She got me tonight. All right. Can you call for member Councillor Anstead? Thank you. Councillor Duncan will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on that? Let's have the vote. And we're missing Councillor Newton, who registers in favor, and so that is carried. Thank you. Next up is the Mar Hill Drain. We have three here too. First, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the quarter revision for the Mar Hill Municipal Drain on June 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And we're having some technology problems. Okay, so we've got, with Councillor Ansted's manual vote, that is carried. Next, I have a bylaw enablement here as follows. That bylaw number 54-2023, being a bylaw to provide drainage works Mar Hill Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Am I missing a resolution in here? Yeah, that's what I thought, but I'm not seeing that in my paperwork, so. Okay, let me turn the clerk's microphone on. Let's go to that one first, the accepting of the report, before we do the bylaws, so that we have an orderly process. Clerk Klein?
So the resolution reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the Mar Hill Municipal Drain Report dated March 31st, 2023, prepared by Spreet Associates Engineers and Architects.
Okay, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Nordholm, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And now let's try this bylaw enablement one for this one again. That bylaw number 54-2023, being a bylaw to provide drainage works Mar Hill Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time, and be provisionally adopted. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Let's turn now to the Macintosh Drain. Three resolutions here. First, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the Macintosh Municipal Drain Report dated April 24th, 2023, prepared by Spreet Associates Engineers and Architects. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. I think I got that right. Sure. whoever, right? Okay, we have this figured out. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. It's funny how if you twitch and I see it, you're it, right? Okay, next resolution then is as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the quarter revision for the Macintosh Municipal Drain on June 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Isn't it 6:30? They're together. Because I thought the last one, okay, they're all together. They're all being dealt with together. Okay, good. 6 p.m. Now, I won't ask it as a question. I'll offer it as an assertion. Can I call for mover? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Councillor Nordholm will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And finally, that bylaw number 55-2023, being a bylaw to provide drainage works, Macintosh Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Johnston, Councillor Nordholm, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, 9 consecutive votes. Pretty easy for a mayor to get a little confused at times, right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Richardson, as always. It's almost tempting to say ease up, but we'll let you do your thing. All right. That brings us to agenda item number 5, reports from departments and key staff. Tonight, in a rare occasion, I think, we don't have any departmental reports brought forward for our council, which allows us to move to item 6 on our agenda. Are there any requests by councillors for reports from staff or of our committees? Anyone? Councillor Nordholm, let me find the floor. Here we go.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on a report request. So last year, May 16, Councillor Seiler requested a report for on a community flagpole. I'm just kind of curious when we'll be hearing that report.
Okay, let me turn to the CAO. CAO Snell, do you have any updates verbally at this time?
So at this time, staff are working on some options that will be brought forward to council hopefully in the near future. I think it should be here by the end of summer for sure.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Anyone else with a request for reports from staff or committee? I'm not seeing any hands waving at me or twitches at this point, so I'm going to assume we're good. We have received one item of correspondence that warrants our review and or action. As item 7.1, we have received a request from the local not-for-profit organization It Takes a Village, inviting consent for their use of Livingstone Park to create, as they did last summer, an outdoor affordable foods market in our community. This market will be available every second Saturday from June through October, according to the correspondence. Anyone have any questions or comments? Let me just grab your microphone here. Deputy Mayor Kellam.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd. I'd like to start off by saying I'm not opposed to what they're wanting to do here. I am concerned again about the location of it. I've been contacted by several neighbors in the area. They do not mind it maybe one Saturday for the year, but every other Saturday, they're not for it. Very busy, and as someone said at the beginning, they line up very early to get there, and it's a very busy street. I'm wondering if they would consider relocating it to the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex in the, I think it would be the southwest corner. There's ample parking there and plenty of place to set up, which would eliminate down there. Thank you.
Okay, so registering a concern about location and the impacts on the local neighborhood. I think Councillor Andreessen is next, then Councillor Richardson. Councillor Andreessen.
Just to add to Deputy Mayor Kellum's comments, Elma Street will be under construction for really the majority of the summer, and that could be a deterrent or an issue with this type of activity happening, which could be a problem with parking and or other congestion happening on that other side street, which escapes, the name of it escapes me. So perhaps looking at some other location, as I'm not sure, any suggestion is fine, but I agree that perhaps another location will need to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points. Councillor Richardson, you're next.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I also echo the comments that have been previously made. My only other point that I'd like to make that I still, as I said last year, it creates and sets a very dangerous precedence. If we have a park, I certainly fully support the auspices of which they're doing the market, but it creates a dangerous precedent for municipal land to do that as long as it's zoned properly. I don't even think it's a permitted use to do that. I understand what they're doing, but I'm not in favor of this location. If they could find another spot, I would, that you can host such an event with that level of regularity, I'd be in favor of it, but not this location. And the construction's a good point too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The construction has me concerned as well. Can I turn to CAO Snell? I mean, you were involved in discussions with this party a year ago and had to give consideration to some of the matters, perhaps, that Councillor Richardson spoke to, concerns about managing risk and so forth at that location. Can you offer comment on what you learned last time around and what your thoughts are at this hour with regards to this particular application?
So I did speak with Clerk Klein today. We did not receive any negative reports from It Takes a Village is running the outdoor market in Livingston Park throughout the summer last year. There was a concern early on about just the appropriateness of the park, but only had one. And they did get a permit and provide all the necessary documentation to receive the permit, but as council's aware, the fee was waived at their request. I have not had any conversation with them this year until the letter arrived.
So, Councillor Richardson raised the issue of zoning and it being a park, and is this an appropriate use? Can you comment on that?
So right now, that's the purpose of permitting. So often food trucks or farmers markets are often in locations that do not fit the natural zoning of the area, and that's the purpose of the permitting process, to make sure they comply with all the other regulations. But for example, we have food parks or food trucks at special events in parks often.
Okay, so I think maybe on that front, that's a helpful insight into what's happened in terms of staff work with the applicant. So, anyone else want to offer comment on this before we consider a resolution? Let's go to Councillor Duncan first, since this will be his first crack at this, and then back to Councillor Andreessen. Let's see if I get the microphones right. Councillor Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think just with the Elma Street construction, I think we should maybe go back to It Takes a Village and ask them to consider a different location. I'm fully, in support of what they're doing, but I don't think this is a good location, especially this year.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Was there someone on this side who wanted to jump in on this? Okay, Councillor Anstead, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. And just, I think one little piece I'll add, just if we could go to It Takes a Village with some potential other sites as well. I know we've talked about some, but if we can put some in writing, I think that will help facilitate this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anstead. CAO Snell, are there other sites that you would put on a short list so that Council has some understanding ahead of that discussion? if there were to be a discussion?
I have not given additional sites any thought until
Okay.
the conversation tonight. So, I mean, Steve Kerr complex was certainly one. I know they were looking for something downtown, but that certainly limits their options.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. I mean, I caught sort of a different wind than the resolution that we have. Do you want to proceed with this resolution and determine how to proceed, or do you want to revise this resolution at this point? Councillor Andreessen.
My preference would be to defer this until we can come up with the next step in terms of location.
Okay, I think our next regular council meeting is June 5th, which then eats into the time frame that they would have been thinking about this matter. So is that still your thinking at this point? Yeah, you want to push this off? Do you want staff to bring back a report then that outlines options, or do you want direct negotiations to happen and staff in good faith working with the applicant to choose an alternate and bring that before council?
My suggestion would be to have staff work with the applicant to look at possible locations.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So then why don't we consider, anyone object to considering a different resolution? All right, so let's take this one off the floor. Let's consider a resolution then that directs staff to reach out to the applicant, it takes a village, and to determine whether there are alternative locations in North Perth that we can make available for their market on the terms that they've proposed. Mm-hmm. Yes? Something like that?
Yeah.
That sounds good to you. You want to be the mover of this one, Councillor
Yeah,
Andreessen? Deputy Mayor Kellum, you're good with that as a seconder? All right. Councillor Rothwell, did you have comments?
Just speaking of the motion, I think that's fair enough for municipally owned lands, but perhaps there are privately owned lands that the applicant could consider. For example, if they had discussions with the Legion, there has been in past markets there on that property. So as to whether or not that would be permitted, but I mean, staff could investigate that. And frankly, if it ended up being a private property, it could very well be that it would not necessarily have to come back to council, as I understand. It would. It's required to come back to council if it's on municipal property. Is that correct? Through you.
I would argue that at this point, the intent of the resolution, if we haven't been explicit, is that if it is to be on a municipal property, then it should come back to council for oversight and approval, or consideration at least, right? So I think that's the intent. If I didn't get that wording in there, Clerk Klein, can you kind of massage that a little bit for us? Okay, you're right. There's no question that it could be on private land, and I would say that staff's direction includes giving them the advice that they could pursue other options and at their own with their own process. Does that sound right to you? I don't know if we need to embed that in the resolution. I think we're probably okay, and I'm pretty sure the CAO has heard the message with regards to this. All right, so we have something that's duly moved and seconded. We're not quite sure 100% of the final wording, but the clerks look like they're conferring over here. So, okay, we're good? All right. Is it something we can bring up, or do you want to read out what you've got again, just so that everybody hears it one more time?
Mr. Mayor, I can read it out. So we have that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to work with It Takes a Village to determine whether there are alternative locations in North Perth that can be made available for the market on the dates proposed in the original correspondence. And I would say alternative locations would include public or privately owned lands.
Okay. Seems fair to everyone in council, meets the intent that we collaborated on. Okay. Any more discussion or debate on this one? All right, seeing none, let's have that vote then. And that's carried. So staff will reach out to It Takes a Village and work with them under those mandates with regards to our property, and advise them that there are options in the private sector that they may wish to entertain as well. Okay, thank you. Let's move forward then to item number 8.1. In this one, council is asked to authorize the signing of a second dwelling agreement with Alan and Elsie Gingrich. I think this usually happens when there's a plan to construct a new home and they need a short-term dwelling on the same property. Is that the case here? Thank you. All right. So I have a bylaw enablement resolution as follows. Bylaw number 52-2023 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a conditional second dwelling agreement be introduced, read, and considered ready for second and third time and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Johnson will be our mover. Councillor Nordum will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. We do have included with our council package the draft text of a motion for consideration at our next council meeting. Councillor Rothwell has been kind enough to prepare this text, and it is certainly subject to refinement over the next week and not next week, but at our next council meeting. I should be more precise. But we certainly should acknowledge this matter and note that it will be considered at our next council meeting. Councillor Rothwell, did you wish to offer any comments, or you prefer the formality of reading it into the record? Your call at this point.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and I think we can dispense with the formality for reading. But again, just going back 2 meetings ago, Council did discuss this issue, and I had offered to come up with a proposed resolution. I assure you, as you've said, it is subject to refinement. If there are things that this members of Council or staff wish to add, I'm more than happy to do so. Again, the information is based on my review of some literature that's been here, as well as the Ontario Building Officials Association website, which talks specifically about jobs, as well as some of the challenges they have in terms of age of the current staff, in terms of being eligible to retire. At least half of them are. So obviously it's an issue of concern. Which this municipality has expressed, and some issues that we've had with respect to hiring both chief building official as well as building inspectors. So those are both, it's not just like it's building officials, so that is both the chief building official as well as building inspectors. So more than happy to have suggestions that we can discuss at our upcoming meeting, and hopefully, if council agrees, we can get this matter through to other municipalities for their consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Andreessen, do you have a different notice of motion, or we're not entertaining debate on this at this point, or particular comments? This is sort of the formal notice to council that this will be on the agenda next meeting. Did you want to offer comments still?
I was just thinking about I just feel that there could be some additional wording added, but I'm not sure if this is the time to do that or not.
I would argue that it's not at this point in time, that it should be carried forward to the next meeting where we have a full consideration of the resolution.
Sure.
But in the interim, I think if you have suggestions, you can certainly send them to Councillor Rothwell and
sure.
by email, and he'll be happy to consider those things. All right. Thank you. Let's move forward then to item 10 on our agenda. Colleagues, this is usually the happy hour. Do we have any announcements that would be a benefit to people got excited there, to our community, or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? And certainly, Clerk Klein, if there's anyone still connected by web conference, if they have anything to say, we'd be welcome to entertain that as well. Colleagues, any announcements? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Let's move forward to item 11. We have one matter to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I will now read the resolution that explains and enables our action as follows. The council proceeds in camera at 8:15 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding property described as park lots 22 and 23, Concession 1 Wallace, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstead, thank you. And our seconder will be Councillor Duncan, thank you. And I assume there isn't any discussion or debate, so let's have that vote. Okay, and that is carried. That means at this point in time, we are adjourned from open council. We will enter into a closed session meeting. There are some audiovisual technicalities that need to be taken care of. Our friend Simon is here, so we will ask him to do the magic that is required. Come on up. Our story is with YouTube. Councillor Richardson is our YouTube expert, so he will advise in due course. You can see the. You can see the. Okay, good. And you've just had, you know, a special accolade added to your name, a plug for your services. So that's pretty good, right? All right, yeah, pat on the back. Here we go. Very good. All right. Let's report to the community. I can confirm that council did discuss the matters identified in our enabling resolution for closed session meeting of council and did give staff direction pertaining to the matters, but at this time we will keep that direction confidential for the reasons that were stipulated in our enablement of closed session. Council has a mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. For item 13.1, I have the draft of an enablement resolution for the confirmatory bylaw as follows: that bylaw number 57-2023, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Councillor Norton will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's see if eScribe is still awake at this hour. Let's have that vote. And that is carried, and that means, councillors, that we've come to item 13 on our agenda. We have completed the deliberation and taken action on the business that did come before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a motion to that effect as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 8:48 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, June 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Johnston, you're our seconder on this one. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Our next regular council meeting then is Monday, June 5th. We do have a special meeting of council tomorrow evening, starting at 5 p.m. on the issues of housing and homelessness, and that will take place in this chamber. At this time then, this council is adjourned.